Afternoon, Dr. M class. Today's discussion is explaining the qualitative and quantitative steps necessary in conducting a sensitivity analysis and how can a project's risk be incorporated into a capital budgeting analysis. My name is Marcelo Picalomino. This is for BUSN607, American Military University. So, what is sensitivity analysis? According to my source here, a sensitivity analysis measures how susceptible the output of a model is to alterations in the value of the inputs. It aids in identifying which input variables drive most of the variation in the output. For example, in a financial model measuring a company's profitability, key inputs typically encompass sales growth, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, interest rates, inflation, and tax rates. By increasing and decreasing each of these inputs and observing the impact on profits, you can determine which inputs are most sensitive, where minor changes instigate major swings in profits. So what's the difference between quantitative and qualitative data? Quantitative data is countable or measurable relating to numbers, tells us how many, how much, or how often. Fixed and universal, factual, gathered by measuring and counting things, analyzed using statistical analysis. Whereas qualitative data is descriptive, relating to words and language, describes certain attributes and helps us understand the why or how behind certain behaviors. Dynamic and subjective, open to interpretation, gathered through observations and interviews, analyzed by grouping the data into meaningful themes or categories. When I was younger, I worked for a market research company, and they hired me to interview my peers with a preset list of questions. They would transcribe the tapes and categorize the info and share with their clients that included Coca-Cola. Looking back now that I'm being exposed to these concepts causes me to reinterpret how they used the info gained through the interviews and utilized it to impact future projects or investments for said companies. As a best practice, sensitivity analysis should be included in all cost estimates because it examines the effect of changing assumptions and ground rules. Since uncertainty cannot be avoided, it is necessary to identify the cost elements that represent the most risks, and if possible, cost estimators should quantify the risks. So quantitative cost drivers include a shorter or longer economic life, the volume mix or pattern of workload, potential requirement changes, configuration changes in hardware, software, facilities, alternative assumptions about program operations, fielding strategy, inflation rate, technology heritage, savings, and development time, higher or lower learning curves, changes in performance characteristics, testing requirements of acquisition strategy, whether multi-year procurement, dual sourcing, or the like, labor rates, growth in software size or the amount of software reuse, and downscoping the program. Whereas qualitative, descriptive items include focus groups, documents, personal accounts or papers, cultural records, observations, and interviews. Steps in performing a sensitivity analysis. Identify key cost drivers, ground rules, and assumptions for sensitivity testing. Re-estimate the total cost by choosing one of these cost drivers to vary two set amounts. For example, maximum and minimum or performance thresholds. Document the results. Repeat 2 and 3 until all factors identified in step 1 have been tested independently. Evaluate the results to determine which drivers affect the cost estimate most. That is from 2009 GAO Cost Estimating Assessment Guide. So you can build a model in Excel using data table to adjust inputs with the one at a time method and systematically utilize the what if method to forecast potential outcomes. In some cases, the accuracy of your estimate doesn't make much of a difference. In other cases, an apparently minor change to an estimate has a major effect on the outcome. Sensitivity analysis helps you calculate the importance of a particular assumption. This positions you to focus on the critical drivers and to avoid wasting time on drivers that have little effect on the outcome. It's the critical drivers that need the most attention. If it's hard to put much confidence in an estimate of a critical driver, it will also be hard to place much faith in the results of business analysis. Excel provides several ways to manage and manipulate these drivers. One, scenario management helps you manage the inputs to your business case. Using scenarios, you can alter different assumptions about decision drivers such as the discount rate or the cost of capital. Another Excel function that gives you more insight into your business case's outcomes is IRR, or internal rate of return. And by using Excel's goal, seek, and solver tools, you can get more from a sensitivity analysis. A business's capital budget is its strategy for generating the projects and ideas that fund the company. The meaning of risk is different depending on the context, even when discussing risks in conjunction with the capital budgeting. Generally, business risk means spending company funds on a project or investment that may or not yield revenue. With risk and capital budgeting, the terms mean the calculation of potential financial variability in revenue from a project or idea. So whether a clothing company is thinking about adding a new line of accessories or a restaurant is looking to add a new item on the menu or adding delivery services, a company must evaluate investing into a new project from an informed position. They can quantify the risks from best understanding what their customers' ideal needs are from a qualitative approach, such as focus group or survey, or by advertising during a set period and quantifying a potential uptick in sales. So can their proposed strategy drive and sustain them through the cash conversion cycle and achieve the expected return? Perhaps, using a thorough sensitivity analysis. Financial managers may incorporate systematic risks into capital budgeting using one of two strategies: the certainty equivalent approach or the risk adjusted discount rate. The certainty equivalent approach calculates risk by theoretically removing risk from cash flows and then predicting how much cash would be spent and what it could be spent on. Companies evaluating new investment projects sometimes rush headlong into an assessment of risks and returns of the project alone without fully understanding the sources and magnitude of the risk they already face. They should assess how much current performance is at risk, outline potential cash flows against capital requirement dividends. They can modify their strategic plan and make it more resilient to risks. They should evaluate each project consistently. So their approach of evaluating projects and their risk consistently by specifying basic economic drivers of the project. They can prescribe consistent key assumptions, assess and challenge the risks identified, and adjust calculations to achieve desired results. And they can prioritize projects by risk-adjusted returns. And they can do that by comparing and evaluating each project against each other and not independently. So most companies usually may be brainstorming, have a few ideas on what they want to move into, and rather than do them individually, they can pin them up against each other. So do they fail to meet the cost capital, or do they surpass an elevated hurdle rate once plugged in and doing those calculations? Here are my references, and thank you for your time. Appreciate you.